The Honorable Minister Manoj Sinha Ji, Sunita Singh Sengupta, Uday Shankar Ji, ladies and gentlemen, let me first say that I know very little about what I have been asked to speak about. The people who are here know much more about the subject. But let me endorse what the Honorable Minister said, that if India is going to change, Niti Aayog is not going to change it. Niti and the likes of Niti are going to change it. I must confess that I didn't know very much about Astaabrata before being invited here. Astaabrata, of course, means 8 vows, 8 pledges. In our system, we are used to the idea of taking vows, taking pledges. There are various listings of the kinds of vratas we have. It isn't always 8, the number varies. In Ashtavrata's case, there is a list of 8 vows, which are associated more with things that kings are supposed to do. But on that little bit of vows and pledges, as the Honorable Minister has said, traditionally, for us, it has been a natural thing to do. It's been part of our system without labels and adjectives like corporate social responsibility and social entrepreneurship having been thrust on us from outside. Much before these labels existed, we have been used to doing it. Except we've been more used to doing it as individuals. Examples of which the Honorable Minister gave. At least for the last 20 years, there are several instances where people have got involved, people have tried to bring about a change, and quite often when governments have reacted to the pressure that has been brought about by people. Whether it is the Consumer Protection Act in 86, whether it is the Environment Protection Act in 1986, whether it is the RTI, all of these have been the result of people participation. What, however, I find distinguishes what is happening today from what has happened in the past is a great sense of pride in the country. In the last 4.5 years, there is a sense of pride in being Indian. And that has reinforced this desire to do something for the betterment of the country and to endorse again what Niti said. It is about forgetting about ahang and mama and doing something for the rest of the world. As I said, naturally it comes to us. In no Indian language is the word I spelt with a capital letter. The word I is spelt with a capital letter in English and in some other European languages. In Indian languages, I is never at the forefront. The aham, the mama is not in the forefront. It's in the back. Let me now turn to the issue of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is very difficult to define. Entrepreneurship, I'm not talking about social entrepreneurship now, I'm just talking about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is very difficult to define. It is the art of risk taking. Economists will define it as the art of risk taking, but beyond it, they do not understand it. I don't know whether Sunita Sengupta tries to teach entrepreneurship or not. My conviction is entrepreneurship cannot be taught. You can teach skills, but you cannot teach entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship as risk-taking is something that requires you to be slightly mad. If you are not mad, you cannot be an entrepreneur. There are skills which management institutes can enable you to make you a better entrepreneur. What we need to note, however, is that there is plenty of entrepreneurship in India, but all of this entrepreneurship is not entities that are registered under the Companies Act or even under the proprietorship legislation. These are unorganized. They do not have any legal standing. If you look at the large number of MSMEs that exist in India, 97% are not registered under any legal framework, which means they find it very difficult to access capital, which means they will not get capital from the organized sector, they will not get capital from banks, which also means, and I'm just talking about entrepreneurship at the moment, which also means that exit for them became very, very difficult until recently this government changed the legislation. So in the area of entrepreneurship, accessing capital, accessing funds has always been a problem. Now we come to the area of social entrepreneurship, which makes it even more difficult because the moment you're using the word social entrepreneurship, you're using the word entrepreneurship in the context of the social sectors, where the tangible benefits are even more difficult to measure. Economists use the word externalities, positive externalities. You are doing things which benefit society in the broader sense, and therefore the social benefits are much more than the private benefits. But these are difficult to quantify. If they are difficult to quantify, it is very difficult to get any kind of funding for this. There are several instances of NGOs and there are several instances of social entrepreneurs, and I'm drawing a distinction between the two, not legally, but nevertheless I'm drawing a distinction between the two because NGOs are often tailored to much more that is in the nature of the short term, whereas social entrepreneurs generally tend to look at a slightly longer term in terms of interventions. Having said that, I think what is most important for something like this is quite often whether it is an NGO or whether it is a social entrepreneur, people tend to work in silos. This is something that the minister also said. I'm repeating it in a slightly different language. Most of the time, they are driven by one single individual. When that one single individual is successful, we will read about him or her. In places like Better India, But we will never have a very clear idea about what has ensured that success. We will never have a very clear idea about what is even more important, not just the success, but also the failure. Out of every social entrepreneur who succeeds, out of every 100, a very low percentage probably succeed. And often people are reinventing the wheel. And the great utility of something like what Astaabrata is trying to do is to build these networks. Networks not merely for accessing funds, which is important, and this again something Niti mentioned, I am stating it a little bit differently, because there is a need to disintermediate. What do I mean by that? The availability of funds, CSR or otherwise, is in urban areas. The interventions that one is trying to do is in rural areas. So one needs some kind of mechanism outside government to efficiently intermediate the two, to efficiently match the two. But beyond that, this networking is necessary to learn from the successes and the failures. And that networking is also necessary to do something that is extremely, extremely difficult, which is to upscale and replicate. Exchanging notes on success and failure is easy, but the biggest challenge, in my view, for all NGOs and all social entrepreneurs is not just funding, it is the challenge of finding out how do I upscale, how do I replicate, how do I transcend this one-person-driven syndrome. Beyond that, as I said, I have no skills, I have no knowledge. It is for you to intervene, and it is for you to make India a better place. Thank you once again, Niti, for inviting me. Thank you, Astaabrata.